Hi, and welcome back to the next silage zone edition. It's late September and a lot of the corn silage is off the field already, but what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today was alfalfa for 2022. As you can see behind me, I got a beautiful stand where they'd taken the fourth cutting off and let it regrow, and hopefully most everyone else that's going to plan to have that field in good condition for next year also left theirs alone from that roughly September 1 to October 10th time frame, as far as not taking that additional cutting during that time, so that you give the root reserves plenty of time to regenerate, to have the carbohydrates to get them through winter and then spring green up. Unless you're planning on taking that field off next year, then you can go ahead and take it if need be. But this does provide us a great way for insulating that crown with catching the snow, and it also helps build back those root reserves. The other two things we want to keep track of is our potassium levels, that we know if they're adequate. That's going to help with winter hardiness. And then of the fields we know that we are going to plant alfalfa new in the spring 2022, make sure the pH is adequate then. But to do that, we have to test it now, get the limestone on now to get it to that 6-8 range if that's what we're going to do. The next thing I wanted to touch on was just around some terminology, some tags, and a little bit around disease resistance. So one of the terminologies that gets thrown around in the industry quite a bit is lowered lignin versus reduced lignin. Lowered lignin is when we've selected plants that have a lower lignin content and purposely made those production products. Reduced lignin is about where we've integrated a genetic modification in Harv Extra that actually reduces the percent lignin through that modification by 15 to 20%. So again, don't get those two mixed up. Reduced lignin is the Harv Extra event. The lowered lignin is where people have selected for it, and they have varieties such as our quality varieties, the Q. The ones that we have a Q in the middle of it, those are the ones that naturally have lower lignin. The other one that gets thrown out there by some companies is hybrid alfalfa. And most crops, like corn, have 2 copies of each chromosome, whereas alfalfa has 4 copies of each chromosome, and that tetraploid nature of alfalfa makes it impossible to breed homozygous inbreds like corn. So when a company says they've got hybrid alfalfa, what they're basically doing is crossing 2 varieties, not 2 homozygous inbreds. And then that resulting seed from the male sterile is simply a mix of those 2 parents. It's not a true hybrid. Now sometimes you'll see that hybrid alfalfa in events where they've entered them in collegiate testing, university testing, and they'll get a nice response, 7 to 10%. But that's that SIN1 seed, or that first seed from the 2 crossing of varieties. But because that is not possible to maintain because of its inability for selfing, that 7 to 10% is lost over time, and especially when they go to production seed. So those are a couple of the terminologies that I wanted to bring to you. So the next thing I wanted to visit with you about is what's on the tag. How much viable seed do you have in a 50-pound bag? To understand that, what we need to do is look at that tag and discern what's on there for numbers. So we start off with 100%, obviously. You need to subtract the coating that's on that product, and if they happen to list inert material, and then take that number times the percent germination that's guaranteed on the tag. So let's take ours for example. We have a 9% coating. You take off that, so we end up with 91%, or roughly 90, somewhere in there, maybe a little bit of inert material. Then you take that times typically our 90% germination, you end up with about an 82% pure live seed. Many other companies have a 34% coating, to where if you take that from a 100% and multiply that times a 90% germination, you're down to 59% pure live seed. So 82 versus 59. On our 9%, we put fungicide directly onto the seed. Then we coat that with a polymer to protect it. Then we put on a rhizobial inoculant, and then coat that again with a polymer and a mica flow agent so that it's for better plantability. just another caveat, remember, if you have any tech fees on that bag of seed for Roundup or for Harvextra or for both, that tech fee gets applied to that bag no matter what your pure live seed number is. At 82% versus 59%, that tech fee can get really expensive if you have a heavy coating. The last thing I'm going to cover in regards to alfalfa seed is around disease considerations. In general, today there's 6 primary diseases that alfalfa is rated for. That would be bacterial, verticillum, fusarium, anthracnose, phytophthora, and aphanomyces. 1. If you have a highly resistant variety, that means that over 50% of the plants are resistant to that disease. So if you had a very highly resistant variety to all of the major diseases, it would have a score of 30. Some other people have added in aphanomyces race 2, so you would say a 35 would be one that has highly resistant, greater than 50% for all 7 of those disease considerations. Pioneer's taken it a step further, where we say if it's scored an 8, that would be highly resistant, where it's greater than 50% resistance to that disease. But we also look at it, we've got some varieties that score a 9 on certain disease traits, which means that over 70% of the plants are resistant to that disease consideration. So just look at those really close as you're evaluating what you need. Your important ones for seedlings, for new seeding in 2022, would be the Phytophthora and the Aphanomyces. And be careful on the Aphanomyces. Multi-Aphanomyces resistance is what most companies deal with. The ones that have been identified is specifically as Aphanomyces race 1 and Aphanomyces race 2. There isn't a 3 yet, but again, it's multi-resistance to multi-species of Aphanomyces. So look at those things. When you consider what you're going to be buying for your alfalfa, make sure you understand the terminology that's being used. Look at the pure live seed that you're actually buying, and then make sure that the disease package fits what you need for your property. Thanks. Reach out to your Pioneer sales agencies, or you can contact me at james.smith@pioneer.com. My cell phone's 507-381-7614.
That concludes this Pioneer Agronomy video podcast. Visit our page on pioneer.com and follow us on Twitter and Facebook for more agronomy insights.